pilgrimage site. There's tons of monasteries all over the place. It's the first recorded. There's the first record of Shaolin boxing, like Shaolin Kung Fu and stuff, was from this area. And this monastery was called Crouching Tiger Monastery, which I thought was pretty interesting. And now it's actually a nunnery. There's always little shaved-headed nuns running around. It's still operational. And it's massive and unbelievably beautiful and decaying. It's probably built in the 1600s. This version of it has probably been there for longer, but this version of it was built in the 1600s, I think. And it basically was in a working, like, decaying ruin / monastery that was still working. And so I took a gazillion photographs. Again, I could do a whole exhibition on just this one set of buildings. But this is all one courtyard, basically kind of a front view, look to the left, look to the right. That's basically what this is. And I always envisioned it sort of like you cruise around through these paintings, you kind of get a feeling of being inside these little octagonal doorway passages with thresholds to keep the spirits out and all sorts of little things that are not Western in any way architecturally. Like you would never see a octagonal door anywhere in Western architecture. And the lanterns are everywhere. It's not fake. It's all very real. And I don't know. I'm not sure. There's so much to talk about on a trip like this and a series of work like this. So I'm not sure where else to go with it. Who has any questions?
And the double door effect.
Yeah, it was like a hallway, basically split to two doorways. I don't think it went anywhere inside. It was basically a passageway, but there was these little thresholds, which I believe keep the bad spirits out. So every big door, every house, when you went to a house to go inside the home, this is the old architecture, not now, but in the old homes, there'd always be a threshold of like 6 inches or 8 inches up. You have to step over to go in, and that was to keep bad spirits from kind of following you in the house.
Because they have knees.
Yes, no knees. They can't lift their legs. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Oh, they carry dragons or something?
I guess, yeah. The spirits
But
have
they literally
knees.
they wouldn't follow you in. And then so there'd be big gates and then doors inside, but even the big doors or the small doors, they all would leave a threshold. Unless it was for like a cart or something. It'd have to be a thing to step over. Yes?
As a non-artist, can you talk about the difference between how you go from the photograph to the drawing to the study to the painting?
Yeah, sure. You have photographs and they're sort of all over the place. I'll often be collaging things and tweaking a lot of architectural distortions in a photograph so they look correct, actually in Photoshop first. I'll draw to kind of figure out composition, like how to crop it. In the painting, I figure out color relationships. Masses, how much gray will work with this much red, and this gray, how light to bring things, how dark to bring things. You're basically playing it off. If it doesn't work on this scale, it won't work bigger. Artists forever have been doing this because once you start painting big and something's not working, it can be really hard or really depressing. When something goes wrong, you're like, I gotta change all that, And so you try to make your mistakes on this little scale where it's less detail. You're not like holding on to it. You can just kind of push things and move things and get it to where it's right. And so that's going to sort of hold together on a bigger scale. And then you solve the problems of a big painting. And sometimes this is done with grids. You'll see actually on some of these paintings, like on these, I think these are gridded. You'll see pencil lines through them. Because I've changed things between the photograph and the drawing. So then I'll grid that and I'll use that to draw. Maybe not even the medium size, maybe just the bigger size. I'll use these little grids. And then in the big painting, technically I'm doing a couple weird things. One thing is, this is oil on linen, but I'm stretching the linen on panel so I can prep the surface with sand it down so it's smooth, like a panel. It kind of responds like a panel, like it doesn't give. And then once I kind of finish the painting and figure it out, I take it off the panel stretcher and re-stretch it onto stretcher bars. And in doing that, like example, this panel was this big, it was long, and it didn't work on this scale, so I cropped it. It kind of gives you a different freedom transferring from linen and then re-stretching it. I don't know if I recommend it for everyone to do, but it's what I do.
You paint it on the panel, you paint it as you stretch it on?
Canvas on panel.
You paint it that.
On the panel. I like the hard surface. So a panel, like these are panels. When you get big panels, they become unruly. They get heavy, you can drop them, you can chip them. Whereas this is much more forgiving. You can drop a canvas and it'll be okay. You know, you can poke it, but when I'm working, I like to have it protected by a panel being behind it. For a whole bunch of reasons, I like working in that system. And also, other trips I've done when I travel, I'll paint on a system of the canvas on panel, and when I finish the painting, I can pop it off, and then maybe there might be another prepared canvas behind that. I can paint on that, take that off, and I can actually gang up a bunch of paintings on one panel to travel with, and then come home with a roll of canvases. That's another thing I've done. But in this trip, I didn't have to worry about it. I just did some sketches and photographs and did it all when I got back.
What sort of glue adheres?
Snow glue.
Stretched. It's just stretched?
Staples.
I thought you said you glued it onto the panel. No.
I stretched it on the panel, and then I prepare it with gesso or something, so I can build up a bunch of gesso with sanding it down, so it becomes a smooth surface that I want.
So do you staple it on the panel?
Bingo.
Realistic
I
in
knew
the
there was
sense
a panel in
that
there
if we go
somewhere.
there tomorrow, that's how it looks, or you can
Yeah.
artistic license on
It's
on the number of windows or
not so much. No, sometimes I fudge things. I take things out. Like there were these big symbols and like ornaments hanging, and I didn't understand the symbolism of them. They seemed like these weird big behemoths hanging. After the study, I decided to remove them in the final pieces because the cleanness of the architecture more interested me. There's symbolism everywhere. There's things hanging everywhere. I removed tons of stuff. So things may look pretty accurate, but then if you go there, there was like a big metal fire extinguisher spigot that had been plumbed in there years ago. And it had aged just like everything else, covered in moss and aged. It could be kind of cool. That's a different painting, And this painting, I sort of eliminated it. But yes.
Then can I ask, why is the bright exit sign in that one?
Good question. It wasn't there initially, and I decided to put it in. I think it needed something.
Yeah, it's a good
My study, I don't think it's in there. I don't know. I didn't initially have it in there, and maybe I wanted to make sure it was in China, like it was, it could be anywhere. It started to look a little bit like a European painting, and I was like, no, I want to make sure this is in China. And so I use a lot of omission. Painting is the art of omission, and the stuff you decide to leave in, that's sort of what's the distillation process is.
You
Yeah.
mentioned Photoshop. How do you...
That's a long question, and it's not. But it's for another time. Another question?
Can I make one more question?
Yes, one more question. Yes.
Why slide doors and open?
I have another question. It's too long. I don't know. It's like when I'm dying, I'll answer that. The doorway. I don't know.
It's either an entrance or an exit.
Light. I always have done it. Yes.
If the Chinese government had allowed you to paint there, would you have preferred to paint in China, or you rather paint in your studio anyway?
If they had allowed me to. The nature of how much we were traveling on this trip, I would not have brought my rig. Less than like 5 days or 6 days, 7 days in a spot, it's not even worth bringing your oil paints. Because you have to go around and see what you're going to want to paint, and then you got to go about painting it. It's not like bringing your camera where you can go and you go, I want to paint that. Rip. Painters, you have to go scout, and then you have to come back and spend 5 hours and try to do it. And then come back again, ideally. So what you want to do, it's more like if I was going to go back and if the Chinese government said, we're inviting you to come, I would try to go to a city for a month and try to get some ideas, get some work done. It's a long journey.
Also, I thought that there were a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah. It actually would have been hard to be able to see what you want to paint.
Yeah, and also we almost never. One time at dawn, I painted outside. Most of the time I'm painting from my hotel or in random places. If you're outside, there are people everywhere. unlike my painting, there are people everywhere. Like this was pretty quiet, but any kind of street scene, you know, that picture of the Forbidden City, there are like 30 people standing around me when I'm shooting these pictures. Like, it's gangs of people everywhere, and to be out there painting, I mean, and this is a culture that's no idea of personal space. Like, their concept of personal space is like not ours. They'd be like, "What you doing?" and you're like, "I was painting." So those become really hard. That's why plein air is so popular. Cityscapes are hard. It's always like, I'm on a rooftop. Because if you're on the street, it's like you can't paint. People are always in front of you, and they have a right to be there. So you can't be like, "Buddy, move." That's why I think landscape in the country, on a rooftop, from a high window. You're just so popular because no one messes with you. Okay, I think we're wrapping up. But thank you guys for listening to me babble.
One more question.
We'll do it in private.
Oh, okay.
We're wrapping it up. For everybody else.
Thank you.
Wait a second, I'm supposed to wrap it up. That's why. Yes.